Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm glad you're here. And of course, you're listening to the OverPower Mountain podcast with your host, Marcel, the OPGOAT. And as we start to wrap up 2024, I wanted to start wrapping up a few loose end podcast ideas that I had floated out there. And, some podcasts are going to be thematic throughout, the whole life of this endeavor I've taken on. And other ones, I want to wrap up rough ideas and then probably focus more on features of other things. So, without further ado, as we enter the wrapping season, I shall gift wrap up Competitive Battlesites, Part 2. This one, I wanted to approach in a different way. Now, I want to wrap up my whole conceptual idea of Battlesites for you, and then, of course, as I aforementioned there, I may, focus on more specific ideas. But as I, really started to think about Battlesites and how I approached the first one, of course, the first one I featured the 3 Battlesites that won tournaments this year. And I said, after that, I sat down and, a lot of people actually gave feedback on that episode and they spoke about what they'd like to see and, different thoughts like that. And it seems like a lot of people just want to know what people put in Battlesites and to play that. Now, I think that's ultimately what I want you to break when you listen to this podcast. I'm not here to tell you to play that AD or that AA for that character in that battle site, and that's the best way to do it. I hope that you're listening to this podcast to, expand your mind and to enter a different level of OverPower thought. If you just wanted me to tell you this is the best, that's the way to go, so on and so on, then, what's the fun in that? Where's the creation? Where's the, the oomph? I mean, yes, it's always nice to win, but when you win with a deck you've created and you've put, time and thought and effort into, and you turned around and the symbiotism just worked amazingly between, either you used a battle site or the any heroes you chose and the characters you chose and, the deck precision you chose and how you perform that tournament. You won a tournament with it. Like, to explain that kind of elation, and the fact that I've even been lucky enough to even pull a few decks up the night before and win a tournament with them is even more mind-boggling. But to explain what I'm trying to get at is, it's not a matter of, a lot of other games, card games, or even computer style games that mimic card games like Hearthstone. A lot of them literally want exact deck counts of what cards this, what cards that. And I hope when you're listening to this podcast, I hope you're understanding that I'm not just trying to teach you, the basics of play this card, play that card. I want you to understand the deeper thought of OverPower, like the je ne sais quoi that makes it truly the game that it is, that you can really deep dive into your own strategies and your own thoughts, and let alone even, as we've mentioned in other podcasts, add in a character that you love and find some sort of thematic, way you can go about it. And the deck is competitive and you start winning. Oh, there's nothing better than that. I remember in 2023, and I think this is how we're going to start the episode off. In 2023, I had been, in and out of the tournament scene, just doing other things. And I finally gotten to the point where I wasn't happy just going back to tournaments and just having a good time. I was back in the competitive edge of it, and I really wanted to win again. And I remember coming up with this, you know, deck that I had, built off of the deck that had just won the previous tournament, and it was a draw mechanic style deck. And I said to myself, okay, well, how can I look at that deck and be inspired by it? And I found a complete like different character set that did lightly similar things. And I remember going to myself, okay, well, now I need the perfect Battlesite to accompaniment this deck that I've found. And the deck at the time was the Starjammers, Mr. Fantastic, Dark Beast, and Silver Sable in reserve. I was really edging on, the draw 3 power of the deck. And one thing I said to myself, I said, I really need, an accompaniment of a Battlesite that can really take this deck over the edge and just consistently give me that edge over my opponent that I want to dominate now. I'm ready to actually compete. And so I remember starting to go through all the Battlesites, and I did a full once through, and I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what to pick. And my mind just kept gravitating to the old favorites because that's just what you're used to. It's just your first initial thought. And if you don't have old favorites, that's even better. You're in a better position than a lot of people. But a lot of people who used to play the game are like, oh, I used to play this one, or I used to play that, or I think I remember that. And, they just fall back into these old habits. And, for me, a lot of the time, it ends up actually being like the Onslaught Citadel. That personally is one of the battle sites I've, just had a lot of success in my life with. So I naturally kept going back to that every time I wanted to play like a new character set or a new deck concept. But in this particular deck, I was looking for very specific cards from my battle site to complement the deck I had already created. So I really had to dig deeper when it came to looking for those specific cards. Now, I was obviously given the advantage that a similar deck style had just won the tournament before. So, I was able to, pull a lot of IP out of that, especially just being the player I am and understanding deck builds and, conceptual ideas very quickly. I was able to sort of, pull a lot of the ideas that deck did and look for it in different ways, i.e. different characters or just different battle sites, and put my own twist on it and sort of come up with something wondrous. So I actually said to myself, I said, okay, I have this deck, and now I want to create this final product. So this is what I need out of my battle site. And I said, okay, well, I'm doing a draw 3 mechanic, so I need my battle site 1 per deck to be a draw 3. So, that limited probably already down to just a handful of battle sites that you could pick from already. Draw 3s are, they're prevalent, but, they're not overly, packed out there in particular characters. And funny, when you look at a lot of battle sites, it's very unique how they have actually grouped up a lot of characters who have very similar style of specials on certain battle sites. So, there's a lot of double draw 3 battle sites out there that you can actually have. Instead of them being spread out over a lot. So I fell into this sort of like handful style of battle sites. And I said, okay, well, the mechanic that I truly loved that the other deck did was I really want the DS special, which came out, I believe the first one came out in Power Surge through Banshee. Which was called Luck of the Irish. And the card essentially says that, Banshee may look through the draw pile for one of Banshee's special cards. Well, when you use this special through a battle site, well, it becomes an any character search at that particular time. So you can actually go and get, any card you want immediately. I mean, of course, barring that your opponent doesn't negate the effect of the DS itself when you play it offensively, because it can't be played defensively, sadly enough. Uh, but you get to play this DS early enough, and you can fish out any card you want. Well, obviously, my particular draw style deck, it was really really beneficial to draw out any of my draw threes early in a match. Dare I say, even in the first hand, to gain huge advantage for me. So now I was like, okay, well, I need the draw three, and I need this DS special. And so I started to look it up, and well, I'll be danged, I was already down to now two Battlesites. So just by picking two particular actions that I wanted my deck to have functionality with, I immediately went from every Battlesite choice down to two Battlesites. And what I'm trying to get into your head here, listener, is again thinking conceptually here instead of I just need a bunch of defense. I just need my favorite battle site. I only use this battle site because I love that one per deck, and that's all I use because that's all I know, because that's what I want to play. I want you to think about what I just said. I built a deck, and then I said, okay, I need the battle site to complement my deck. It had nothing to do with what was my favorite battle site. Does my deck provide a lot of this and I need just a lot of that? Now, sometimes those are questions you will ask yourself, but in this particular situation, I was creating, I'm not going to really call it a combo style deck, but a deck that needed particular mechanics when I wanted them. And this was a way I was able to sort of maneuver through the OverPower landscape to create a scenario where, ultimately I chose Hell's Kitchen, and we're about to go over it, but the character that I'll reference first is the Ghost Rider, and he has that DS special I just spoke of. So, the mechanic I'm deeply searching for in my deck was, of course, to have the ability to get one of my draw threes early in a game. Well, obviously in the Hell's Kitchen now I'm going to I'm going to definitely put, at least I think in my mind, three Ghost Rider specials in there, to have access to that DS special relatively early. And of course, the DS not being a one per deck, actually will have the ability to get it with my Beyonder special or my Beyonder activator as well, being the wild card and being able to get anything under my battle site. So of course, with that being said, I now will have four cards in my deck that will be able to fetch that draw three immediately. Well, if you have a 56 card deck, you're looking at roughly 8 hands, and I mean, you got a 50. I'm not doing the crazy math here, but you got a pretty good chance that you're going to get that within the first couple of hands of most games, if not at least access to it in the first hand in a lot of games. So you can understand now that looking at battle sites uniquely in that fashion, it really is where I think magic gets created, or starts to, the cream starts to rise to the top when it comes to new decks in the meta and so on. Now, sometimes, the deck does all the heavy lifting. One of the more popular decks, the Juggernaut Heroes for Hire build that are popping around now. You can clearly see that character build, the two of them beside each other, truly is the juggernaut of the deck, dare I use the pun. As you've seen a lot of success with that deck with many different styles of battle sites. As it seems like the battle site works, and in that scenario, a lot of, like with the Heroes for Hire Juggernaut build, It might just be what you're more comfortable with, and what you find is better access for you to win games, for whatever win conditions you're looking for. But when it comes to building a deck and building a concept out from the ground, from the deck to the event to the battle site, and looking for that perfect symbiotic, new meta deck that is just going to dominate, I truly think you have to think deeper, in this sort of mannerism that I'm giving you here. I hope this lesson's really hitting you, friends. So let's dive into, when I found Hell's Kitchen. Now here I had this draw 3 deck, and now I had this character Ghost Rider, and I'm like, okay, that's amazing. I have access to this DS, and I can get this draw 3 as soon as I want. That's what I really want. And then I was like, oh my god, well, Ghost Rider even, he got a draw 3 special in Marvels. So in that set, he actually received a draw 3, one per deck. So, the two things I were actually looking for were both on a single character and on a single battle site. Well, the one thing I didn't like about that was the fact that if I'm trying to push, my big boy cards are all in my hand all at once, it's going to be hard for me if both, this mechanic of the DS that I'm, kind of giving up a lot for to get this battle site, and my one per deck are both under the same character. Because now, I'm hoping a lot of the times I'm going to have to get my Beyonder involved, and, now my percentages of a lot of things are starting to go down, and, not always in that ample exact moment that you really need these sort of situational cards to pop off. So, I really had to find a different avenue for this. And of course, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, a lot of these draw 3 characters kind of got grouped together in a certain sort of way. And so on Hell's Kitchen, they also have the Kingpin. Now, the Kingpin also has a draw 3, Business Savvy. Beautiful card. Love the visual of it. If you actually ever get to see it, he's sitting at, well, of course you'll get to see it because you can just go into your collection and go to Kingpin and go to his draw 3, and you'll get to see him sitting there with the cigar smoking at the table, and he's in his pinstripe suit, and he's got his big ring on, and he just made a big business deal, and he won that one. So beautiful card, beautiful visual, but he has this draw 3 as well. So now in a situational hand, I could have my Ghost Rider, my Kingpin, both in my first hand now. And I would then have access to both the, my draw 3 plus the DS to access the other draw 3 from one of my characters. So you could imagine now, your mind is already starting to spin, and you're like, wow, like, you could conceptually think of how fast and how many times I could have access to this draw 3 early. Now, again, to get something, sometimes you have to give things. So obviously, one of the big topics that's going to be the feature of this, podcast today is going to be that I'm picking battle sites to talk about in this part 2 or part 2 that don't have negates. So you're going to see, this is sort of one of those moments where I even myself, branch away from my, deep inner thought and deep inner urge to always have a negate everywhere at all times. Like I said, to get something, you have to give something. And, in this particular combo or game mechanic, I really wanted it that bad that I was willing to sacrifice a negate. I figured, the speed and the access to, the draw 3 mechanic was just way better than, having that single negate for that situational moment. I thought that I could really rush people with speed and so on. And ultimately it did work because, I did end up winning that tournament. But of course, what I really want to reference here with Hell's Kitchen, what I looked at on the other aspect was I realized that my team was incredibly, offense forward, and it worked when it came to stats, but it wasn't overly, pushy with a lot of defense. So when I started looking at Hell's Kitchen as well, I just realized, well, this is just, one of the biggest safe havens of defense that you could even possibly have here. You start off with characters like Daredevil, and in my particular build, I used his AD, which is his 1 to 9. Avoid for him and a teammate is also a Marvel's release. And I also used his only universe, or sorry, no universe may be used against Daredevil for the remainder of battle, which of course is fantastic because it has a defensive capability. So if somebody throws a teamwork or an ally at you, you actually can use the no universe as a way to defend that initial attack, and then also no universe cards may continue on. The really great thing about that Daredevil card as well that worked out incredibly well was when it's used in the initial part of a teamwork string. A lot of the times when opponents are throwing teamworks at you initially, it's to put that KO pressure on you, especially, dare I say, the second, third, or fourth round, where you may already have a hit or two on your character, and then the next thing you know, they're throwing this full, teamwork with 2 additional attacks coming right after it. Well, that's a scary situation. Well, when the first one comes and you put this Daredevil down, well, you already know that all the attacks on the remainder of that teamwork have to go a different direction. So it's really almost like a really pseudo light lock off when it comes to universe cards in that mannerism. It's really quite nice. And it works quite complementary when you pair it up with Enforcers, who's the next character on the Battlesite, because they have only universe cards. I believe it's Dan's Marsden. And I it's one of those cards where it's really good because that's the complete opposite of what I just mentioned. So if somebody throws a huge special at you, or a massive power card that wasn't off of teamwork and isn't accompanied by some sort of universe card, and you could have, of course, play that card, which is CD coded, and that says only universe cards. And there was many a situation where they'd play a big special at me and they'd say only universe, and then they'd think they have me, and then they get play a teamwork through my only universe, and then the next thing I go is Daredevil no universe. Well, that's a full lock off, because now only universe and no universe happens, so no attacks can essentially come towards this character. It's a 2-card version of a lock off, but sometimes in a game that's just necessary for that particular round to make sure that nothing can get towards your character. Of course, sometimes they have 2 hits and you just can't let that character go. You haven't seen too much of their action yet. So you can imagine already, just in the first 2 characters, some really nice defensive options here already. One of the cards I popularized as well with Hell's Kitchen and my initial build of it is actually Enforcers have a card named Montana. And it says Enforcers and target hero may not attack for a remainder of battle or be attacked. Essentially like not be attacked. Sorry, that's the DZ. It's the AX. So just both characters cannot attack. Really quite nice, mid game, mid hand, can just really, you placed on the right character, can just, win around monstrously. And, if you can really read your opponent very well, it's actually one that if you can see someone gauging a lot of attacks through a character, you could see quickly who that card has to go on. So just sort of a hidden gem. The AX world. AX is the card. code, of course. So really nice in terms of the enforcers, different set. They also have, 6 strength. I believe it cannot be defended by a card with an energy icon. Really quite nice, especially against, when the energy was heavy meta. When I particularly played this deck, it was really sort of cut through style of card. And then, of course, we get to the Kingpin, which I had just aforementioned. So the thing about the Kingpin that was really unique, and I don't find this too often when I had to build Battlesites, but this one I found that really was a weird scenario that occurred because I chose him as my draw 3. Obviously with Ghost Rider, the DS, you add cards in, like you have a plethora of Ghost Rider cards. You could choose anything in his arsenal there. But he has everything from the 4 and make additional demon chains to his own half a void AD to even a double power card block that must have in that scenario. And of course, the best AI in the game, opponent must discard. So you can imagine that, you could choose any 3 of those. That doesn't even need to include the draw 3. When you get to the Kingpin, he's, I don't want to say almost the complete opposite of Ghost Rider, but once you get past the Kingpin's, Kingpin's a very 1 per deck heavy style of character. And of course, he's a max 6, so he should just have these really just big hitters that come at you if you're, willing to play him in a main deck. So with Kingpin, what's really unique is being all this 1 per deck heavy is his non 1 per decks are very light to medium in terms of power range. And so Kingpin becomes this unique activator where it starts heavy. You get this big draw 3 right off the bat, and you love seeing your first Kingpin. But once you use that draw 3, his cards kind of get medium to weak after that, being both the bodyguard from MOE that I used and Rose, which is a 5 fighting mimic special attack afterwards. So you could see how, you almost want to save the Kingpin draw 3 for, break glass in case of emergency type style. The great compliment as well to this Battlesite was the hand. The hand just sort of added in this unique oomph as well as defense. And I really just used 2 of them. It was the 8 any power as well as the 6 any power. And the 6 any power, of course, can be used to attack or defend. So fantastic double card set there. Now they do have that hidden gem card as well that I've referenced in past podcasts, where you can play it on the hand and they get to actually fight for the remainder of the battle as well. So if you're willing to sort of put in a 3rd hand, and sacrifice dupability as well as, potential card advantage loss, that card really could have big potential, especially in combo style play. And then, of course, the yin to Daredevil's defensive yang is Elektra, the other super defensive character that you could just add on a site. So you could imagine with the Daredevil character, I already had a 1-9 avoid and a no universe. And then you turn around with Elektra and I have a straight avoid and DB confusion. Like, what an amazing, like, the defense on defense on defense from this site was just fantastic, especially the ability to still add the oomph with like I say, the Enforcer 6, the Kingpin 5, the Hand 8. Elektra has a 7 multi, which she got in the Marvel set as well. And then, of course, Ghost Rider just sort of doing the mechanic I need him to do right away of, getting that access to that early draw 3. So it really shows you that it complemented the deck so much because the deck itself was so offensively charged with jammers and getting to this draw 3 mechanic that I really just needed the Battlesite to complement it with both the big 1 per deck, the mechanic I was desperately going for in the DS, as well as giving me that additional just blanket of defense. And I have to admit that the two together worked incredibly well. Now, ever since that, and I mean, even before that, Hell's Kitchen really just started getting incredible amount of play. And, people have used it from um, the ability of the Asclepion home base, through the use of the Enforcers, Masters of Evil one per deck, which is amazing. I've even seen people use the Enforcers, discard all, hits in permanent and current and use that as like a flip method. Switching places with reserves. I've seen people use Ghost Riders draw 3 in this. There's a lot of mechanics where the Hell's Kitchen really is just it's a truly top tier site. Of course, people always chagrining it because it doesn't have that draw 3 mechanic. Now, of course, like I said, if there's moments where it, or sorry, it doesn't have that negate mechanic. There's moments where you can look past that and think bigger when it comes to decks. And look at obscure battle sites that might just give you something that you just see that other people just don't see, and you find the right deck for it. And it truly just, comes together and is just like that shining light. The next one I'm going to actually feature as I continue on here is somebody I think actually really did exactly what I'm saying and, found a deck as well as a battle site that just, worked in complete conjunction with each other. It was amazing. I have to really give it kudos. And I'm going to kind of talk about it a little bit because as I've gone through a lot of deck ideas, I have to say this battle site has crept up several times because of its very unique mechanic that no other battle site actually offers. And, I have to say for them not only finding it, but also the other cards that this battle site offers, this truly falls in a top tier style battle site as well. Of course, not having the negate mechanic is the one thing truly holding it back. However, this battle site also has a very savvy way to possibly have a negate when necessary should the situational moment arise. Now let's get into this. First played by Sean Sawyer, to great success at the very least, that brought it into the dominance of play. He paired it up with a Beyonder deck, and that's the Hell Carrier. Now I'm going to talk less about the deck he paired it up with and more about the battle site itself now, because he found a great fit for him. But this is where I want you to get away from understanding that these battle sites aren't always, that deck, that battle site, that's what I play and that's how I become good. Think about it, how are you finding these combos yourself? And that's half of the fun of the game. So the Hellcarrier battle site, when you look at it, it's even when I first looked at it, I have to admit, I looked down the list of characters and I said, and is there like a second side to this card? Like, is there another 6 characters I get to also choose from? And then it actually took me a little while and actually watching some of Sean Sawyer's games just to even understand kind of what was going on, what were the positives, and why this was such a good battle site. And I actually spent a lot of time breaking this down and kind of coming up with both the reasons why I thought it was incredibly good and how I could sort of work it into my own decks. Now I'm going to go over it roughly with you, and I want you to have those thoughts and, look deeper into this site, because obviously I can only spend so much time on it, my friends. So the Hellcarrier starts off with Black Widow. Now, if you look at Black Widow's cards, she has, she was one of those that came out in Mission Control. So, her cards are like +3 to venture total, -3 to venture total, like, avoid one energy attack, maybe played from reserve, a 7 fighting, one per deck that does something, I can't even tell you. And then I believe, in IQ, they tried to help her out, which I actually think they gave her an amazing card. And, when I particularly play this Battlesite, I either play that card under Black Widow or Captain America. And her version is called Champion. Now, of course, that's, Black Widow special cards are doubled for venture total this battle. And of course, Captain America is being called Inspiration. One of the most beautiful artworks I've ever seen, and I'm Canadian. Very inspired. So, you can understand what a great situational special card that could be coming out of a battle site in a round that you're trying to win, and now all of a sudden, your specials that were all played through X character that landed are now doubled. It's quite nice, especially if you land even more, just more than one card, even if it's more than one, 6 or so. So, powerful card in its own respect. However, the rest of her cards are like an avoid. She did get a 6 intellect that can attack the reserve. A little bit of a hidden sort of tech card there. So she has like a couple like little things, but nothing you're like, okay, not too much. Then we get to the green-haired man himself, Doc Samson. And you start looking through his cards and you're just like, oh wow, like no wonder, Mission Control was that horrible because another character who just got, the back end of this stick here. Like, wow. From like 2 different 4 strengths to, reveal all special cards in hand, or, or reveal 1 special card in hand. Like, it's just like, thankfully in, the Marvel side, he did actually get a KL, and I believe in IQ he did receive a 7 intellect AR special. So, he has a couple like passable cards here, but I just talked about, basically a third of this battle site, and it's just sheer like shenanigans. I mean, it gets better, and it starts now with, the man who brings everybody together and runs the Helicarrier, and that's Nick Fury. Now, this guy here, now he brings some oomph. Now, I'm gonna respect, Nick Fury's name, so I'm gonna put respect right from the get-go on his name. Right away he brings you, the 8 any power, which is probably the biggest non-one per deck attack, minus like, the Cyclops 9 that you can get now out of Marvels from a battle site. So it's the biggest attack you can really get. So right away he's bringing you oomph, like super oomph. And then he just brings you like, one of the best defensive cards in the game. And, he brings you this LO special, which says avoid 1 attack with an energy icon and draw 1 card off the top of your draw pile. Now, this card can just manipulate so many different battles, and I don't need to get into the super details of how great of a card that is, especially with energy still being a high meta on the board. So, great thought there in terms of Nick Fury. Now, I think it's a little bit of a sleeper hit. Now, a lot of people could argue as to why it's good, why it's bad, but I just think there's some thought there, and this is where I want you to start branching your mind, friends, is, Nick Fury in Marvels received an amazing 1 per deck, where it actually says opponent may not play activator cards for remainder of battle. Now, you have to remember 2 things about this card is, first off, it means all activators, offensive, defensively, no matter what. And my greatest wording is on there, which I always love, which is opponent. So if they don't have a negate, they cannot actually do anything about that card. It just automatically hits. Now, that could be a huge round winner, especially, if you're venturing for the win or so on in that regard, or just a hidden gem coming out at the right time. So just little thoughts like that, always branching out, thinking bigger like that. Red Skull being the next character, bringing you some really good non-1 per deck Umphere with his own, 6 energy, discard 2 if it hits, to his straight avoid as well if you want to go in that direction. He also has a 5 strength, mimic, 1 additional special card attack. Really some good cards there as well. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the characters mimic a lot of specials. So, of course, Captain America now having, avoid 1 attack. He also has a 5 energy, mimic an additional special. He also has, the champion card and inspiration. He does provide a great AD for this, which is his 1 to 9 avoid for a teammate, which is usually what most people play off this. So he does provide that secondary defensive oomph as well. And then, of course, we get to the reason people even play the Hellcarrier, which is Hydra. Now, the reason people really sort of get into this world is because Hydra themselves have 3 unique cards. And it's usually the 3 most people play, which is the Hydra 1 per deck, and then, of course, the Hydra Avoid, and then the Hydra Steel. So I'll start with the 1 per deck because it's actually the most savvy and fun. It actually says Hydra may look through opponent's draw pile and choose 1 card. This card acts identical to that card. It may be played immediately, and this card also may be played defensively. What an amazing card. This card can essentially, anytime your opponent's played anything from locking out one of his characters with either just even a basic CD like Only Universe or a full lockout, to, a large attack in your opponent's battle site, to a draw 3 that your opponent's played. You can play a draw 3 right back at them. This just mimics anything your opponent has done. Now, this is also where I said you can sneakily get a little negate in there as well, because if your opponent has negated something prior to anything, or even just discarded a negate into their dead pile, well, this card, of course, being able to be played defensively, is now a negate for you from your battle site. So, in that exact situation where, they're just going to win the game if that special card goes through and you know it, and you just need something, it's always there for that mannerism. Of course, they have to have a negate go into the battle site. So, the situation and the timing can always not be there just for you as well. Well, the other one they also have as well is opponent discards 1 non-1 per deck card from under their battle site. And of course, this card acts identical to the card immediately, and you may use it against one of their characters. So it's really a great card, this Hydra card, because 2 things. First off, you get to pull a very unique non-1 per deck from under their battle site, which, for ranging from anything from those 8 any powers to, that AX special I just talked about, where you can, block off one of their characters. There's a plethora of things that this can ultimately do for you. I have to say, one of the most unique things somebody did once was pulled out one of my 5s from under my battle site that said, if this card hits, the person doesn't have an inherent ability anymore, and they threw it on Ghost Rider, and it would have actually just been the 3rd color, but it would have created a kill scenario, and thankfully I had something to block it, and it was a fun little play by them, with this Hydra card. And of course, funny in that situation is if you're playing against another Hydra deck, you immediately play this card, because what you do then is you actually play this card, then you get their version of the Hydra card out, and then you replay that Hydra card on them again. So you basically steal their Hydra card and get the ability afterwards as well. So a little sort of hidden gem there. Now, I think the only real reason this this battle site sort of escalates above a lot of other ones is this particular card, and it states avoid 1 attack, choose an icon on the attack, and Hydra becomes an 8 stat in that icon of your choice. And now, of course, it has to be on that card. Now, there's plenty multi-power cards or even a teamwork has three icons on it, even though only the first one is the actual attack. It just says one of the icons on the card. So it's really unique because it's one of those only ways. Oh, and sorry, it does last for the remainder of the game. So you can imagine, just these three cards in this Masters of Evil um, set have just escalated the Hellcarrier to a whole nother level. It is the only way to give one of your characters a full 8 stat for the remainder of the game. So, in a lot of the scenarios that people were sort of painting themselves into of this, choose an 8 and choose a negate character, dare I say the old Ed rule, they were getting in this scenario where they were getting into this mono 8 plays. And this is just a great battle site that if you just feel like you have this amazing deck, but it only has one 8 character, well, maybe the Hellcarrier is meant for you because it can now, defensively give one of your characters an 8 stat. Now, of course, your opponent can negate that card after you've played it defensively and your character gets boosted to 8, but you also will then have the ability to defensively negate their negate. Whew, convoluted. So, great battle site. Honestly, I'm trying to show you there's different ways to think about the battle site game out there. Don't just sort of fall into the basic, I need defense, I choose this battle site. I need offense, I choose this battle site. I need a few tricks, I choose this battle site. There's always, deeper thoughts as to why you're choosing a deck to either accompany a battle site, or maybe you've chosen an amazing battle site that has something to it, and now you're just trying to find a deck. And, I think that's where I'm going to sort of leave you is on that thought, because I think what I'm going to do is a fun thought exercise for all of you out there at home. And I think there's a bit of a hidden gem battle site that I've been looking at for a while. And, I don't know if I necessarily have the deck build around it yet, but I think it would be fun to see what other people's deck builds would be with this particular battle site. So not only am I going to talk about this battle site, but I would really love in the comment section for you to tell me what deck you would build with this battle site and why. I'm going to give a set of the Mega Power promos to the deck that I choose as the best symbiotic reason to be with this battle site. So the battle site I am choosing is the Big Apple. I think it's a huge hidden gem that is very rarely, if ever, been used. And the reason I'm picking it is because Heroes for Hire has become just such a top tier character in the game of OverPower that, I started having these thoughts of, well, if I don't want to have Heroes for Hire on my team, like in my actual deck, what if I just put all the Heroes for Hire cards in my battle site? I mean, I'm happy to even just have all 3 of their cards and, that being the ump from them. So I found Heroes for Hire on this battle site and I said, okay, well, that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to put their, JW3, the White Tiger 6, and the 11 1 per deck in there. I thought, what an amazing start. Like, what a great 3 cards right away. And then I started looking down and I was like, oh my god, my man Daredevil's on here. I'm in love. Like, how can you have Heroes for Hire, those 3 cards I just mentioned, the offensive powerhouse, as well as Daredevil now. Now he's providing you all this defense, 1 to 9 defense, you got this, you got that. And then I said, okay, well, who's next? And I said, Spider-Man. Oh my god. Like, he's got some good stuff if you sort of break it down and you have the right deck. I mean, he has a 4 combined with strength. If you have an 8 strength character on your team, that's a 12. He has with great power, which just works amazingly, as a mini sort of draw. Now, I will say with great power played out of a battle site does not go back on top of your deck. It just gets played as a card. You look through the top 8, and then both with great power, and then, of course, you reveal the card or sorry, you take the card and you put it in your hand. So great card out of a battle site, but you do not put it on the top of your draw pile after played out of a battle site. But he has also spider senses, which is would work amazingly with Baker Street. Reveal all specials in hand, and of course he even just has the straight avoid as well. He also has a 4 AA fighting. Great cards there. I then looked and I said, wow, Morbius. I said, I've looked at his card sets. His card set's really good too. He has everything from like a 7 AR fighting to a 5. If successful, Morbius gets to remove a hit. So I'm like, right there, you could even just pair this up with a Sklepion, even maybe. Like great card in that respect. And then I was like, Morbius even has like a half negate in my mind, or what I call a vamp negate. And it avoids a non-numerical, and usually the big boy card that comes situationally in the middle of the game a lot of the times is a non-numerical card. It's not often 9 or 10 or 11 or something that I'm trying to sort of block in that scenario. I need that negate out of my battle site a lot of the time for that Colossus drop 3 or Dazzler absorb sound or some sort of big boy card along those lines. Dare I say, you do a lock off and I still can actually use that Morbius negate on one of your lock offs to try and negate it as well. So great character there. I was like, Morbius has a lot of action that sort of could really see. Then I went to Thunderbolts, and I said to myself, this is one of those characters in the game that they should just never have made. This character's horrible. Like their 1-per-decks are horrible. Their stats are horrible. Their non-OPDs are horrible. This might be one of the worst characters in the game. And shockingly enough, Thunderbolts are on a few battle sites. And often when you get to them, when you see them on a battle site, you just go, oh, the Thunderbolts. You can try to squeeze in maybe like, I believe they have a 4 intellect AA if you want to go in that direction. Maybe a few other cards, I'm not really sure. Not really much there to sort of chew on. But losing only one character on a site truly, to me, is not the be-all end-all. I've seen scenarios where top-tier players have omitted a character who has like 3 really good specials just because they're like, I didn't want that many activators. So it's always about choosing what's best for your deck and for your playstyle even. True. So I then got to the last character, and this one actually is the reason I'm talking about this little hidden gem, and I want all of you out there to sort of see how I and how you can look deeper at battle sites and their non-1-per decks. So I was looking at the last character, and it's Falcon. And anybody who knows Falcon, they're just like, I've looked at Falcon. He is just trash. He's got nothing. I would never even think about playing him. And, that's probably relatively true, especially on a team. But, battle sites always create these unique scenarios where the most unplayable character with the most obscure card now all of a sudden can just be the biggest card in your whole entire deck. And I think Falcon could truthfully be that. He's got a few really nice sort of basic non-1-per decks in terms of like KL special, opponent must discard all cards in play. That's say for remainder of game, for remainder of battle. That's really just becoming a really big, meta stopper these days as well. He's got a few other sort of light basic thoughts, but the one that really caught my eye was his new Marvels card. And this is the one I want you all to wrap your mind around. Now, obviously, right away, my first instinct was to pair it up with Drax Armory. Now, get ready, friends. Here's the exciting part about it. For remainder of game, Falcon may draw 1 card from the top of draw pile for each basic universe card played by Falcon. Discard duplicates. Friends, this resourceful little fighter here, Falcon, you use that right away. At the beginning of the game, you play it on one of your characters. Now, anytime that character uses one of your Dracula's armory to either defend or attack, they draw additionally for that Dracula's Armory. So, what a great card here. Um, I firmly believe that, and I, sadly it's a Marvels card, so it would have to actually probably go to judging. But I believe you may even be actually to play this defensively, uh, with the first initial defensive block, to garner the draw right away, thus paying for the card itself, initially, just off your first initial defensive play with it. And then, of course, getting 2 additional draws off the card. So a unique way to sort of get a sort of a pseudo draw 3 out of a non 1 per deck card. Uh, Really unique thought. It's sort of how I want you to sort of explore and think about Battlesites. I really, said at the beginning of this podcast that this is a different type of episode. And, this is, I don't even know if I would call this advanced level. I want to call this GOAT level. This is where you're really sort of like deep diving into this game and not just thinking about like, oh, this card plays with this card. I want you to create card interactions. I want you to think deeper and understand that there are cards out there that, the depth of fields of players we have just truly haven't sort of, delved into as deeply as it truly still should and could. There's two full sets out that players have just sort of lightly dabbled and looked at without sort of really experimenting with the deep dive into battle sites. And that's what I'm trying to bring you here in the OverPower Mountain podcast, competitive battle sites part 2. This is really what I want. So Mega Power promo set. I want you to pair the Big Apple. It doesn't have to be with the combos I'm bringing up right now or the card interactions I'm bringing up. It could be another way you're thinking about it. And I want you to give me in the comments section your best sort of deck to go along with this. And please do, if you don't mind, like I said, it's always a best symbiotic of the 3. It's not just the deck meets the battle site. There's also the event inclusion there as well. So what event are you choosing? Why are you choosing it? Who are your heroes? How is it interacting with the Big Apple? And what's your Big Apple team? And, hopefully there's a tournament in New York someday, a massive one, and you can bring your Big Apple deck there, or possibly even to like one of the next NAOL tournaments and just be like, I did it, man, and just show it to me, and hopefully try to beat me with it. You won't, but you can try. Friends, I just got to say, this has actually turned into a fun little episode. I hope you used it as a thought exercise. I hope you understand where I'm trying to get you. I want you up here on the mountain with me, on the mountaintop. So, think through battle sites in a different mannerism. Look deeper. Create this game around you. Don't just play this game. And of course, thanks for listening. This is the OverPower Mountain Podcast. I am your host, Marcel, the greatest OverPower player of all time. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. And I hope, you get off here and you sort of start flipping through your location cards and start coming up with your next killer battle site combo. But the first location card you pull out is the Big Apple, and you tell me what kind of team you would create around it and what events you would use and what home base and how you would dominate with the Big Apple if you had to. Thanks again for listening. Subscribe, like, and share. And friends, we have a live cast coming down the pipeline for you. I initially wanted it to be before the season was over, but it looks like the holidays are just slamming hard against us. And of course, I want it to be on my pivotal Wednesday for you, or at least my first one in that respect. So it'll probably be just in the brand new year. I don't know if it'll be on the 1st or on the 8th, but we will figure it out. But look forward to that, friends. The new podcast is coming when it turns live, and we will call those live casts, but I will continue to always do these podcasts so you can always listen to them when you're out doing your errands, your groceries, you're driving, and taking your kids to school and thinking about OverPower decks, because the rest of us in this world, that's basically what we do. Is we just dream OverPower, we sleep OverPower, we breathe OverPower, and that's how you become the best at OverPower, friends. Thanks again for listening.